Jake Morrison never imagined his life would lead to this moment, sitting across from a 7-foot-tall alien woman, whose skin shimmered like polished copper in the afternoon light streaming through his apartment window. The Galactic Exchange Program had seemed like a joke when he first heard about it 6 months ago, but here he was sharing his modest 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Portland with Zara, a member of the Kalari species from a planet called Theros. Prime. Zara was striking in ways that made humans do double takes on the street. Her features were vaguely humanoid but unmistakably alien, with large amber eyes that seemed to glow in dim light, high cheekbones that could cut glass, and hair that moved on its own like living silk. In shades of deep violet, she had been the perfect roommate, quiet, clean, and endlessly fascinated by human culture. She paid her half of the rent on time, never complained about his collection of vintage comic books, and made incredible meals using Earth ingredients in ways he had never considered. But today something was different. Jake noticed it the moment he woke up. The apartment felt warmer than usual, and there was a strange, sweet scent in the air, like honey mixed with something he could not quite identify. Zara had not emerged from her room all morning, which was unusual because she typically woke before dawn to watch the sunrise. Something she said reminded her of home. By noon, Jake was getting concerned. He knocked gently on her door. "Zara, are you okay in there?" There was a long pause before her voice came through, muffled and strained. "Jake, please, I need you to stay away from my room today, perhaps for several days." He frowned, his hand still raised to knock again. "Are you sick? Do you need me to call someone?" "No, I am not sick. I am experiencing something natural for my species, but it would be better if you kept your distance." The way she said it made his stomach twist with worry. "Zara, come on, we are roommates. If something is wrong, I want to help." Another long pause. "You cannot help with this, Jake. Please trust me and stay away." But he could hear something in her voice that sounded almost like pain, and Jake Morrison had never been good at leaving people alone when they were hurting. Against his better judgment, he tried the doorknob and found it unlocked. The moment he pushed the door open, he realized his mistake. The sweet scent hit him like a physical wave, making his head swim. Zara was curled up on her bed, which she had pushed into the corner of the room. Her body was trembling and her skin was flushed a deeper shade of copper that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Her eyes snapped to him, and they were different. The amber had deepened to almost red, and there was something wild in her gaze. "I told you to stay away." Her voice was deeper, rougher than he had ever heard it. Jake took a step back, his heart pounding. "What is happening to you?" Zara closed her eyes and took several deep breaths that seemed to cost her tremendous effort. "I am entering my breeding cycle. It happens once every 3 years for my kind. It is why I asked you to stay away. The pheromones I'm releasing, they affect other species in unpredictable ways." Jake felt his face flush with embarrassment. "Oh God, I am so sorry. I did not know. I will leave you alone." But as he turned to go, Zara made a sound somewhere between a growl and a whimper. "Wait." He froze in the doorway. "The problem is worse now that you have been exposed to the pheromones," she said, her voice tight with control. "Your presence is making it more intense. I can smell you, Jake, and it is driving my instincts into overdrive. This was definitely not covered in the roommate orientation materials. What do I do?" Zara opened her eyes again, and he could see her struggling to maintain composure. "You need to leave the apartment. Go stay with friends, family, anyone, but you cannot be here for the next week." At minimum, Jake pulled out his phone, already running through options. In his head, his best friend Danny was out of town. His sister lived 3 states away. His parents were on a cruise, and every hotel room in the city was booked because of some tech conference. He spent 20 minutes making calls while Zara remained in her room, the sweet scent growing stronger with each passing moment. Finally, he knocked on her door again. "Zara, I have a problem. Everywhere is booked, and everyone I know is either gone or does not have space." Silence. "Zara, I heard you." More silence. Then she spoke again, her voice carefully controlled. "There is another option, but you will not like it. I am listening. Kalari breeding cycles are triggered by environmental cues and hormones, but they can be managed if I can maintain enough mental focus and if external stimuli are minimized. Okay, so what does that mean? It means you need to stay in your room with the door locked. I will stay in mine. We do not see each other, do not speak to each other, and definitely do not come near each other until this passes for a week, maybe 10 days. Jake ran a hand through his hair. That is going to be rough, but okay, I can do that. What about food, bathroom? We coordinate, we take turns, you go first, then stay in your room until I signal that I am back in. Mine, it sounded miserable but doable. All right, let us do it. One more thing, Jake, yeah. If you hear sounds from my room, ignore them. This process is not comfortable for my species. It can be painful at times, but I will be fine. Do not try to help, no matter what you hear. That made him deeply uncomfortable, but he nodded, even though she could not see him. Understood. The first day was not so bad. Jake stayed in his room catching up on shows, playing games on his laptop, and trying very hard not to think about the situation. He could hear Zara moving around occasionally, hear the shower running at odd hours, hear what sounded like furniture being moved. The sweet scent had permeated the entire apartment, making him feel slightly lightheaded whenever he ventured out for food. They had established a system. He would text her when he needed to leave his room, and she would confirm when the coast was clear. But by the second day, things started getting harder. The sounds from Zara's room were impossible to ignore. Low moans that could have been pain or something else. The thud of what sounded like claws scraping against walls, her voice speaking in her native language in tones that ranged from desperate to frustrated. Jake tried to focus on his work. He was a freelance graphic designer and had deadlines approaching, but concentration was nearly impossible. The apartment felt too small, too warm, and that damn sweet smell was everywhere, making his thoughts fuzzy. On the third day, he heard Zara crying. It was around 2 a.m, and Jake had been half asleep when the sound filtered through the walls. Soft, broken sobs that made his chest ache. Every instinct told him to go check on her, but he remembered her warning. Still, the crying continued for almost an hour, and by the end of it, Jake was pacing his room, fists clenched, feeling utterly helpless. When morning came, he texted her, "Are you okay? I heard you last night." The response took 10 minutes to come. "I am managing. It is harder than previous. Cycles being confined in a small space with someone else nearby is making my instincts confused. Please just stay away." He wanted to argue, wanted to help, but all he could do was send back a simple, "Okay, hang in there." The fourth day was when things got weird. Jake woke up to find that the temperature in the apartment had spiked. It felt like a sauna. He stumbled out of his room in just his boxers and t-shirt and immediately noticed that Zara's door was cracked open. That was wrong. That broke their agreement. "Zara," he called out. No response. He approached her door slowly, every nerve on edge. "Zara, are you okay?" Low growl answered him, and then her voice, rough and barely recognizable. "Stay back. Jake, I am warning you." But he could see through the crack in the door, see her collapsed on the floor, her body trembling violently, her skin so flushed it almost glowed. She was hurt or sick, or something was very wrong. Jake pushed the door open. Zara was on her hands and knees, her head hanging down, her violet hair plastered to her neck with sweat. "I told you to stay away." "I know, but you look like you are dying." "I am not dying. This is normal." She lifted her head to look at him, and her eyes were almost completely red now. The amber barely visible, but being this close to you is making it so much worse. Your scent, your presence, everything about you is triggering responses I am trying to suppress. You need to leave. Now. Jake took a step closer, despite every alarm bell ringing in his head. "Tell me what you need. How can I help?" "You cannot help unless..." She cut herself off, shaking her head violently. "No, I will not ask that of you." "Ask what?" Zara laughed, but it was bitter. "My species evolved as communal breeders, Jake. Our cycles are meant to be shared with partners who help us through the process. Without physical contact and the exchange of certain hormones, the cycle can become painful, even dangerous." The realization hit him like a truck. "You need someone to..." "I need a mate." "Yes. Even a temporary one, but I cannot ask you to do that. You are my friend, my roommate, and you are human. I do not even know if it would work properly between our species." Jake stood there, his mind racing. How dangerous is it if you do not have help, Zara? was quiet for a long moment. I will survive, but it will be the most painful experience of my life. I have been through cycles alone before when I first left my homeworld, but never in such close proximity to someone who could potentially help my body. Knows you are here, Jake. It is making everything so much more intense. He should have walked away, should have gone back to his room, locked the door, and let her suffer through it. But Jake Morrison had never been good at letting people suffer when he could do something about it. Tell me what I need to do. Zara's head snapped up. Jake, no, you do not understand what you are offering. I understand that you are in pain and I can help. So, tell me what to do. She stared at him for a long moment. Something warring behind those red-tinged eyes. If you do this, it will not be like human intimacy. Kalari mating is intense. It can last for hours. Our bodies will synchronize in ways that might be overwhelming for you. And there is a chance that you will form what we call a resonance bond, a temporary psychic connection that will fade after the cycle ends. That all sounded insane. But looking at Zara trembling on the floor, clearly suffering, his decision was already made. I trust you. Show me what to do. Something shifted in Zara's expression, the control she had been maintaining slipping away. Come here, she said, her voice dropping to that deeper register. Jake approached slowly, and when he was close enough, Zara reached out and grabbed his wrist. Her grip surprisingly strong. The moment their skin made contact, he felt it, a rush of warmth that spread up his arm and through his chest like electricity. The pheromones he had been smelling for days suddenly intensified, and his head swam. Zara pulled him down to the floor with her, and he could feel the heat radiating from her body. This is your last chance to walk away, she said, her face inches from his. I am not walking away. Then hold on, because this is going to be overwhelming. She was right. The next several hours were a blur of sensation. Unlike anything Jake had experienced, Zara's body seemed to guide his, moving him where she needed him. Her skin hot enough that he worried briefly about burns, but the sensation was pleasure, not pain. The resonance bond she had mentioned hit him about. An hour in, suddenly he could feel what she was feeling, the desperate need, the relief as he helped her through it. The gratitude mixed with something deeper. He could hear her thoughts, not in words, but in emotions. Joy, relief, desire, affection. And she could feel his thoughts too. His worry, his determination to help, his own unexpected pleasure at being trusted so completely. Time lost all meaning. At some point, Zara's skin began to cool, the desperate edge leaving her movements. At another point, they both collapsed in exhaustion, tangled together on her makeshift nest of blankets. Jake drifted in and out of consciousness, feeling Zara's heartbeat against his chest, hearing her breathing slow and even. When he finally woke up properly, the apartment was dark. Zara was watching him, her eyes back to their normal amber color. Hi, he said, his voice hoarse. Hi, she replied. They lay there in silence for a moment. How are you feeling? He asked. Better, so much better. She said, there was wonder in her voice. I did not expect, I knew it would help, but I did not realize how much. Jake managed a weak smile. Glad I could help. Zara reached up and touched his face gently. You did more than help, Jake. You gave me something incredibly precious. You trusted me when I was at my most vulnerable, and you helped me through something that could have broken me. He covered her hand with his. That is what friends do, right? Her expression was complicated. I am not sure we can go back to just friends after this. The resonance bond, it might fade, but what we shared, that changes things. Jake felt it too, that connection still thrumming between them, quieter now, but present. Maybe that is okay. He said. Zara smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing he had seen. Maybe it is. They stayed like that for a while longer, neither willing to break the moment. Eventually, Zara stirred. I need to tell you something. Okay, Kalari, cycles last a week. I am only through the first phase. Jake's eyes widened. We do not have to continue if you want. To stop now is the time to say so, and I will manage the rest on my own. It will not be as bad now that the initial phase is complete. But even as she said it, he could feel through their fading bond that she was hoping he would stay. And looking at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes, feeling the connection between them, Jake knew his answer. I am not going anywhere. The relief and joy that flooded through their bond was answer enough. Over the next 6 days, Jake learned more about Zara and her species than months of casual roommate conversation had revealed. He learned that Kalari bonds were sacred, that choosing to help someone through a cycle was considered one of the highest forms of trust in their culture. He learned that the resonance bond they shared allowed them to communicate without words, to understand each other in ways that went beyond language. He learned that Zara had been alone on Earth, far from her family and her people, and that his willingness to help her had meant more than he could possibly understand, and Zara learned about him too. Through their bond, she felt his loneliness, his history of failed relationships, his deep-seated need to help others, even at cost to himself. She felt his creativity, the way his mind worked when he designed his art. She felt his fears and his hopes and his dreams. By the time the 7th day arrived and Zara's cycle finally completed, they knew each other in ways that most people never achieve in a lifetime. Jake woke up that morning to find Zara already awake, sitting cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed in what looked like meditation. The resonance bond had faded during the night, leaving behind only a faint echo of what had been. He sat up and she opened her eyes. "It is over," she said simply. "How do you feel?" "Complete." She smiled, rested, and incredibly grateful. They moved back to their separate rooms that day, both needing space to process what had happened. Jake threw himself into work, finishing projects he had been neglecting, while Zara spent long hours on her communication device, speaking to her family back on Theros Prime. But despite the return to routine, everything had changed. They moved around each other differently now, more aware, more careful. The easy, casual friendship they had before was gone, replaced by something deeper and more complicated. 3 days after the cycle ended, Zara knocked on Jake's door. He opened it to find her standing there, looking uncertain in a way he had never seen. "We need to talk," she said. They sat in the living room, and for the first time in days, Jake felt nervous. "I spoke with my family," she began. "They were concerned when I told them what happened. Humans and Kalari have never bonded before. We did not know if it was even possible." And Zara took a deep breath. "The resonance bond, it should have faded completely by now, but I can still feel you, Jake, not as strongly as before, but it is there, a connection that should not exist anymore." Jake felt his heart rate pick up because he had noticed it too. Fleeting moments where he could sense her emotions, feel her presence even through walls. "What does that mean?" "I do not know." She admitted, "My mother thinks we might have formed a true bond. Not just a cycle bond, but something permanent." "Permanent?" Zara nodded, looking both scared and hopeful. "In Kalari culture, a true bond is what happens when you find your mate, your permanent partner. It is rare, even among my own people, to find someone you are so compatible with that the bond does not fade." Jake processed this, trying to understand what she was saying. "So we are bonded, like married?" "Not exactly. The bond does not force anything, it just connects us, lets us feel each other. But what we do with that connection, that is up to us." She looked down at her hands. "I know this is not what you signed up for when you agreed to help me. I never intended for this to happen. And if you want me to leave, if this is too much, I will understand." Jake sat back, absorbing it. All a week ago, he had been a regular guy with an alien roommate. Now he was somehow bonded to that roommate, connected in ways he did not fully understand. It should have terrified him. Instead, he felt calm. "Zara, look at me." She raised her eyes to his. "I am not asking you to leave, but this changes everything." She protested. "Your life." "My life? We are from different worlds, Jake. Literally, I know, and maybe that should matter more than it does, but here's what I know. I know that helping you felt right. I know that this bond between us, it does not feel wrong or forced. It feels natural. I know that when I think about you leaving, about going back to how things were before, it makes me sad." "What are you saying?" "I am saying, maybe we should stop fighting this and see where it goes." Zara stared at him. "You want to try to make this work as mates?" Jake smiled. "I want to try to make this work as whatever we are. I do not know what that looks like yet, but I am willing to find out if you are." Slowly, Zara smiled back. "I am willing." They did not have all the answers. There were complications. His family would need explanations. Her family had expectations about Kalari partnerships that he might not be able to fulfill. The cultural differences alone would take years to navigate. But as Jake reached out and took Zara's hand, feeling that bond between them pulse with warmth and possibility, he thought maybe that was okay. Maybe the best relationships were the ones you did not plan, the ones that surprised you and challenged you and made you grow in unexpected ways. Zara squeezed his hand, and through their bond he felt her happiness, her hope, her affection. He thought this might just work. 6 months later, Jake stood in front of a video camera feeling more nervous than he had in his entire life. The Galactic exchange program had asked them to do an interview about their experience living together. They did not know about the bond. Not yet. That was something Jake and Zara were still figuring out how to explain. But they knew that their arrangement had worked better than most, and they wanted to document it as a success story. So Jake sat on the couch in their living room, Zara beside him close enough that their shoulders touched. The interviewer, a friendly woman named Lisa, started with easy questions about the application process, about first impressions, about cultural differences. Then she asked the question that made them both pause. What would you say to someone who is nervous about hosting an alien through the program? Jake and Zara exchanged a look through their bond. He felt her amusement, her love, yes, love. He was still getting used to that. He looked back at the camera. I would say be open to the unexpected. The experience might not go the way you planned. It might actually go in directions you never imagined. But if you are willing to trust to help when help is needed, and to accept help in return, you might find something amazing. Zara added, her voice soft and warm. And I would say that humans are far more adaptable than they give themselves credit for. Jake showed me that you are capable of incredible kindness even in the strangest circumstances. The interviewer smiled, clearly pleased with the answer. One last question. Are you two planning to continue living together? Zara looked at Jake and he felt, through their bond, her question, her hope. He answered both the interviewer and Zara, yeah. We are going to continue living together for as long as she will have. Zara's smile could have lit up the room, forever then. Forever. The interviewer wrapped up, clearly sensing there was more to their story than they were telling, but professional enough not to pry. After she left, Jake and Zara sat together in the quiet apartment. You know, people are going to figure it out eventually, Zara said. What we are, to each other. Jake pulled her closer. Let them, we will deal with it together. Through their bond, he felt her contentment, her certainty that they had made the right choice in a universe of infinite possibilities. What were the odds that a random roommate assignment would lead to this? But as Zara rested her head on his shoulder, Jake decided he did not care about the odds. Sometimes the best things in life were the ones you never saw coming, and sometimes your alien roommate's mating season was just the beginning of something incredible.